I used to think that growing out of Disney was just a natural part of getting older. In part 1, we talked about that distance. That quiet moment where I started looking at the gritty side of the PlayStation, while Mickey and the gang stayed in the safety of the shallow end. It felt like we were moving into two completely different directions. I wanted edge, and Disney wanted to make sure I didn't get a digital paper cut. But then, the late 90s hit, and that distance I was so sure about started to shrink. It wasn't that I was getting younger again, it was that Disney finally stopped playing it safe. They stopped treating the PlayStation like a high-tech colouring book and started treating it like a powerhouse. The gap between what I wanted, games that felt fast, polished and technically impressive, and what Disney was actually making just vanished. Suddenly, you couldn't just dismiss these as kids' games anymore, because they were starting to outclass almost anything else on the shelf. This is the moment that Disney Magic finally learned how to speak 32-bit fluently. We're moving away from the stuttering, uncertain steps of the early years and into an era of high speed, band sliding and massive open toy boxes. This isn't just about licenses anymore, it's about the moment Disney stopped following the trends and started setting the benchmark for what a platformer could actually be.
Oh no!
Oh, you almost had it.
I'm never gonna defeat Zurg!
Sure you will, Rex. In fact, you're a better buzz than I am.
Welcome to the PSX Index. I'm Tarzan, and this is the show where I play and document all 1,278 PS1 games released across Northern America, and this episode is Index entry 70 through to 72. We're picking up the trail of a story we started back at entry 36 to 38. The Disney timeline. In that first bundle, we saw a company tentatively poking at the 32-bit era with one foot still stuck in the 16-bit past. But now, we've hit 1999 and the gloves are off. This is the Disney Bundle Part 2. We're looking at the Disney Story Studio Mulan, Disney's Tarzan, and the absolute titan of licensed platforming, Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the rescue. If the first bundle was about Disney trying to survive the transition to 3D without scarring the parents, this bundle is about them finally realising that the PlayStation was capable of so much more than safe colours and simple rules. We're moving in what I'd like to call the golden era of Disney on the system. The technical jump between A Bug's Life and Tarzan feels like a decade of progress compressed into a single year. We've gone from vibrating textures and clunky cameras to games that actually feel like you're playing a high-budget animated feature. It's the moment where the Disney name on a jewel case stopped being a warning sign for a mediocre tie-in and started becoming a guarantee of some of the best production values on the platform.
Alright, I'm coming!
All right, let's go.
If you go back and look at the first Disney bundle, the games felt like they were struggling against the PlayStation's limitations. Everything was a bit shaky, the textures were vibrating, and there was a constant sense that the developers were just trying to keep the characters from clipping through the floor. It was the era of the compromise, but by 1999, that struggle seems to have ended. The visual leap between A Bug's Life and Tarzan, or Toy Story 2, is one of the most dramatic year-over-year improvements in the entire PS1 library. It's the moment Disney stopped looking like video game versions of movies and started looking like the movies themselves. We're talking about the pre-rendered backgrounds that actually blend with 3D assets, FMV sequences that don't look like they were filmed through a screen door, and character models with a level of animation that feels fluid rather than robotic. This wasn't just a bump in resolution, it was a shift in how these worlds were constructed. The developers stopped fighting the 32-bit hardware and started leaning into its strengths. They figured out how to use the PlayStation's transparency effects for water, how to use lighting to create a sense of depth in a jungle, and how to make a suburban bedroom feel like a massive living world. It's that human feeling of being impressed by the craft. You can see the effort in every frame. The way Buzz's wings pop out, or the way the sunlight filters through the trees in the jungle. It's a technical glow-up that proves Disney wasn't just a guest on the platform anymore. They were the ones showing everyone else how it was done.
No time to lose.
Before we hit the high-octane jungle runs and the Space Ranger heroics, we have to talk about the outlier. Disney's Story Studio Mulan. This isn't a platformer, it's not even really a game in the traditional sense. It's an interactive storybook, a relic of that mid-90s edutainment craze that somehow survived into 1999. If you were looking for a challenging epic where you take on the Hun army, this was the moment where the Index hit a brick wall of childhood simplicity. The structure is essentially a digital retelling of the film broken up by minigames. You're dressing up Mulan, playing a rhythmic drumming game, or navigating a very basic top-down maze. It's the kind of experience that exists purely for the youngest demographic, the kids who weren't quite ready for the precision jumps of Crash Bandicoot but wanted to spend more time in Mulan's world. It's slow, it's deliberate, and it's unashamedly safe. Coming off the momentum of the Golden Era talk, Mulan feels like a ghost from part 1. It's that lingering babysitter energy where the goal isn't to challenge the player, but to occupy them. The presentation is charming enough. The art style mimics the film's beautiful minimalistic brushwork, but as a piece of software on the PlayStation 1, it feels incredibly small. It's a quiet, domestic opening to a bundle that is about to get much louder, but it serves as a reminder that Disney still had one foot in the digital toy market, even as they were preparing to conquer the platforming genre.
Let's see what this scroll jazz is all about.
Calling it a misstep might be a bit harsh, but Story Studio Mulan definitely feels like it's attending a different party than the rest of the bundle. If Tarzan and Toy Story 2 are the heavy-hitting blockbusters, Mulan is the quiet, interactive colouring book tucked away in the corner. It's a total throwback to that safe Disney era we dissected in part 1, a game that isn't interested in the PlayStation's power, only its branding. The problem isn't that it's for kids, it's that it feels like it's underestimating them. By 1999, even the younger audience had seen what Spyro could do. They knew what a 3D world felt like. To go from that to a series of static screens and basic minigames felt like a regression. It's that feeling of being talked down to. You're dressing up Mulan or clicking on a vase to see a canned animation, and you can't help but wonder, why is this on a 32-bit console instead of a PC CD-ROM from 1994? It's the final gasp of that babysitter energy. It's Disney saying, here's something familiar to keep you busy while the older kids play the real games. It serves as a perfect contrast to what's about to happen next in the Index. It reminds us that even during the Golden Era, there were still these pockets of extreme caution, small contained experiences that refuse to evolve. But as we're about to see, when Disney finally decided to stop playing it safe and actually lean into the hardware, the results weren't just good for a license, they were game-changing.
Okay, I'm officially freaked out now.
Then we hit Disney's Tarzan, and the babysitter vibe doesn't just leave the room, it gets thrown out the window. Released in mid-1999, this wasn't just another platformer, it was a technical statement. While everyone else was obsessing over making everything full 3D, often at the cost of terrible cameras and floaty controls, Disney and Eurocom decided to take a different path. They went 2.5D, and this was the smartest move they could have made. By keeping the movement on a fixed path but rendering the world in a lush, deep 3D, Tarzan achieved a level of visual density that shouldn't have been possible on a PS1. The jungle isn't just a flat backdrop, it's a living, breathing space. You're running towards the camera, away from it, and spiralling around massive tree trunks. It feels kinetic, it feels fast. It's the first time a Disney game on the system actually felt like it had momentum. The standout mechanic, of course, is the vine sliding. It's essentially the grinding mechanic from Sonic or Tony Hawk, but polished to a mirror finish. You're weaving through branches, jumping over obstacles, and switching rails at breakneck speeds. It's the exact opposite of the cautious, clunky platforming we saw in A Bug's Life. It's a game that trusts you to have reflexes. It's not interested in holding your hand through a storybook. It wants you to master the flow of the jungle. It's a moment where the distance I felt in part 1 finally started to close. I wasn't playing this because it was Disney. I was playing it because it was genuinely a great action game.
Whoa! Woohoo! Yeah! Woohoo! 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 Woohoo!
If the visuals in Tarzan were a statement, the audio was a full-blown concern. In the late 90s, most licensed games were still leaning on MIDI chirps or repetitive loops that felt like they were coming out of a tin can. But Disney brought in the big guns. Specifically, they brought in Phil Collins. Having that driving, rhythmic percussion and those iconic vocal melodies from the film compressed on a PlayStation disc changed the entire feeling of the experience. It wasn't just about having movie music in the background, it was the way the soundscape sold the momentum of the jungle. When you're mid-slide on a mossy branch, the wind is whistling past, the drums are building, and you can practically feel the humidity through the speakers. It's that dry humour contrast again. Here you are, playing a game based on a cartoon about a man raised by apes, but the production value is hitting you with the weight of a high-budget studio album. The sound effects also stepped up. The thwack of Tarzan hitting a tree or the screech of a startled baboon didn't just sound like stock library assets. They felt textured. It's a level of polish that reminds me of what we saw with Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. When the audio works this hard to keep the illusion alive, you stop thinking about the polygons and start thinking about the atmosphere. It's the sonic key that unlocked the golden era. It proved that a Disney game could have a mood, a vibe that wasn't just bright and happy, but intense, rhythmic, and genuinely cool.
Where's that little sweetheart? Come here! Let him give you a kidney!
Wouldn't it be cool to be Buzz Lightyear? Now you can be Buzz in the new Toy Story 2 video game. Use lasers and whirling torso spins to save the day. Jump, swing and somersault through the air with a special rocket jet and moonspring boots.
There you are!
If Tarzan was the king of the 2.5D jungle, then Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue, was the undisputed giant of the 3D sandbox. This is the moment in the Index where the licensed game label feels like an insult. Released late in 1999, this wasn't just a tie-in, it was a masterclass in platform and design that could stand toe-to-toe with Banjo-Kazooie or Spyro the Dragon. It's a game that took the safe foundations of Part 1 and built a skyscraper on top of them. Developer Traveller's Tales, the same team that struggled to make A Bug's Life feel cohesive, suddenly found their stride. They didn't just give us levels, they gave us environments. You aren't just running through house level 1, you are a 6-inch tall action figure, lost in the sprawling, terrifyingly large geography of Andy's bedroom, his neighbourhood, and eventually Al's toy barn. It's that shift in perspective that makes the game feel so human. You're navigating under beds, scaling bookshelves, and hopping across hot stove burners. Everything about Toy Story 2 feels massive. It's a collectathon done right, where every Pizza Planet token you find feels like a hard-won victory. The camera actually works, the controls are tight, and for the first time in a Disney game on the PS1, the world feels completely open. You aren't being ushered down a narrow hallway, you're being dropped into a sandbox and told to explore. It's the pinnacle of the 1999 golden era, the point where Disney finally stopped apologising for being a video game and started showing the world how a 3D platformer is supposed to feel.
Okay, fellas, let's roll.
The real genius of Toy Story 2 isn't just that it's a solid platformer, it's how it uses scale to make the mundane feel legendary. In most games, a bedroom is just a box with a bed in it. In the hands of Traveller's Tale, Andy's room becomes a multi-tiered canyon. You aren't just walking across a floor, you're navigating a vast beige desert, dodging a literal living dust bunny, while trying to figure out how to scale a chest of drawers that looks like a skyscraper. It leans into that feeling of being small in a world built for giants. Every level takes a familiar location from the movie, the construction yard, Al's toy barn, the alleys and the gullies, and stretches them out until they feel like mini open worlds. You'll find yourself standing on a kitchen counter, looking down at a sink that feels like a shimmering lake, realising you have to use a toaster as a makeshift catapult. It's inventive, it's playful, and it never lets you forget that you're a toy in a human's world. What's impressive for 1999 is that these levels don't feel empty. They are packed with personality and objectives that feel integrated into the environment. You aren't just collecting Pizza Planet tokens because the game told you to. You're earning them by racing RC cars through the neighbourhood or helping a distraught Slinky Dog find his friends. It's a design philosophy that rewards curiosity. Every time you think, I wonder if I can climb that, the answer is almost always yes, and there's usually a reward waiting for you at the top. It's that sense of discovery that makes the scale work. It's not just big for the sake of being big, it's big so there's more to explore. What really elevates Toy Story 2 from a simple 3D platformer into a top-tier adventure is the constant sense of progression. It's not just about jumping, it's about Buzz becoming the high-tech space ranger he was always advertised to be. Throughout the game, you're constantly meeting up with Mr. Potato Head, who's perpetually losing his body parts. Helping him out isn't just a side quest, it's how you unlock the gadgets that fundamentally change how you interact with the world. Suddenly, you're not just exploring, you're equipped. You get the rocket boots for a burst of speed, the hover boots for that extra bit of verticality, and a grappling hook that turns the sprawling environment into a playground. It adds a light Metroidvania layer to the experience. You'll see a Pizza Planet token teasing you from the high shelf in Andy's house and realise you can't get it until you come back later with the right gear. It's a smart way to keep the player engaged, turning every level into a puzzle that unfolds as you get stronger. And then there are the bosses. These aren't just larger enemies with bigger health bars. They are creative set-pieces encounters that test the mastery of Buzz's kit. You're taking on a giant Zerg kite in a tree, dodging the slams of a massive jackhammer at the construction site, or engaging in a high-stakes duel with the evil Emperor Zerg himself on a moving elevator. The variety is staggering. One minute you're using your laser to shrink the slime monster in a trash can, and the next you're in a final showdown against Stinky Pete and his henchmen. It keeps the pacing tight and that feeling of the excitement high. It never feels like the repetitive grind because the game is always throwing a new gadget or a weird toy-themed boss in your path.
Well, Stinky Pete, I think it's time you learned the true meaning of playtime. Right over there, guys! No! No! No!
The distance we talked about in part 1, that feeling of Disney standing still while the PlayStation moved on without them, didn't just close in 1999, it completely collapsed. This is the moment of convergence. These aren't just good for a kid's game or passable for a license. By the time you're deep into Tarzan or Toy Story 2, you realise that Disney finally caught up to the PlayStation's cool factor, not by being edgy, but by being undeniably high quality. In 1996, the gap was massive. I was looking for atmosphere and mechanical depth, and Disney was giving me safe experiments like Mickey's Wild Adventure. But 1999 is different. This is the year Disney games started to feel like they were part of the same conversation as the platform's heavy hitters. Toy Story 2 doesn't feel out of place next to Spyro. It feels like it's equal. Tarzan doesn't feel like a shallow tie-in. It feels like a 2.5D evolution that rivals the best of the genre. It's a bizarrely satisfying moment in the Index. It's a realisation that the Disney magic wasn't just a marketing slogan anymore, it was a technical reality. They stopped being the babysitter and became the benchmark. For the first time, I wasn't just playing these games because I had to for the archive. I was playing them because they were actually pushing the hardware. The distance was gone, and in its place was the golden era of licensed games that proved that you didn't have to be gritty to be great. You just had to be exceptional.
Yeah! Yeah!
That's better.
Yeah!
Watching the credits roll on Toy Story 2 feels different than it did with the first bundle. Back then, finishing a Disney game felt like completing a chore for the sake of the Index, a polite nod to a safe past I'd outgrown. But here, the peak of 1999, the feeling is one of genuine respect. These games didn't just fill a gap, they defined an era where the technical ambition finally matched the magic of the movies. From the rhythmic slides of Tarzan to the vertical scale of Buzz Lightyear's bedroom, Disney proved they could own the PlayStation just as well as they own the box office. 72 games down, 1,206 games to go. Next time on the PSX Index, we are shifting from the golden era of Disney to one of the most anticipated sequels in the history of the console. It wasn't long ago that I took my very first journey through Midgar in Index Entry 46, a massive world odyssey that changed how I looked at RPGs forever. Well, it's time to see if lightning can strike twice. Get ready for Index Entry 73, Final Fantasy VIII. We're trading the Jungle Vines and the toy boxes for Gunblades, Garden Academies, and a triple triad obsession that's probably going to ruin my life. It's a 4-disc epic that divided fans and pushed the PlayStation's FMV capabilities to their absolute breaking point.
No time to lose.